trick for that to quickly find what you need within the platform as well. And last but not least, a quick introduction to one of the coolest features of the platform, which is automations. So the webinar will be practical. We'll be building ourselves, and while I build, I'll explain the what and the hows. So yeah, let's jump into the platform itself. Can you guys confirm if you see my screen? I mean, yes. Like the Monday, yeah? Okay, thank you. So before we dive into the platform itself, I just want to give you a quick explanation on what Monday.com actually is as a platform. And in short, it's a work OS, a work operating system. And basically, that's a place where you can organize many workflows through many organizations throughout many verticals. The main goal of the platform is transparency, communication, and basically have the flexibility to customize any specific workflow. Actually, it's a colleague of mine always refers to the platform as a big Lego box where you can build magnificent castles. And actually, he's not wrong in that sense. So having said that, what you see in front of you now is the Monday.com Basics workspace with some predefined boards. And the use case we will be covering today is that I'm a content manager and I get a lot of requests of content from multiple sources, internally, externally. I get them on email, I get them on WhatsApp, and I just want to have it centralized, and I want to have it in one place where I can follow up everything and even have some nice insights while I'm at it. A workspace, in our sense, it's the Monday.com Basics, because in our sense, this workspace is where I'll show you guys what we'll need to do. But a workspace is actually something that helps you organize your environment. Could be a workspace for each department, could be a workspace for each team. And under or beneath a workspace, you can create the boards. And the boards is actually where all the magic happens. And to show you what we want to build, where we want to go to, is this board. Is the content planning, which is structurized in groups, which I will go further into in a second, where some of those requests can, or all of the requests can come in and I can follow up on them appropriately. I also do that with the help of views, which are here on the top of the board, and so on. So let's create our first board, which basically is done by clicking here on the add and create a new board. And we want to create our own content planning board. We have the choice to use a main board, a private board, and a shareable board. Basically, the difference between those boards are that a main board is by default, hence the transparency, which is one of the basics of Monday.com, is visible to everyone in the account. So you don't have to add people to it, enable for them to see what the data is and what you can do. A private board, in that sense, is private. So you really need to be a member or be added to the board for being able to see the data and the workflow. A shareable board is, in that sense, the same as a private board. So you really need to be added to that specific board and able to see the data, but with an extra. And the extra is actually, I have these three board types here as an example. And the extra between the shareable boards and the other two boards is when you invite people, you can't only add members from within the environment, but also guests from without the environment. So think of clients, freelancers, they need some input or some insights in one of the boards. you can easily share that board with those people, and they can work with you on that specific board. So back to creating the boards. For this use case, I'll be choosing a main board because I actually want to see, I actually want other people to see as well what we're doing. And the items that we will be creating will be content. Takes a while. So I'll add the content planning to this folder. Need to start from scratch. And as you can see, by default, there were 2 groups created. It is possible to add multiple groups. And in our use case, we want to have a groups that is, how do you say it, connected to a status. So we want to have the statuses respond on the groups. A group is a way or helps you organize a board where under the group you can place items, and the items are really your data, your work items. Under an item, it's also possible to go one level deeper, which are the sub-items. And the biggest difference between a sub-item and an item, apart from that the sub-item is connected to an item, is that they can differ in column structure. So as you can see, you have some columns here. And if I would add an extra column here, it will be added for all the sub-items. So over the whole board, an extra column will be added, but it will not be applicable to the head items. Okay. In our use case, we're not going to use sub-items, so I won't go any deeper into that. So as I said, we want our groups to represent the statuses, and I want the place to have all new content come in. So I'll give that name new content. I also want all the posts and emails that people are working on to be organized here, and I want all the posts that are published also organized here. And I need one more group, which are, I call them the attention seekers. When something is stuck, I want it to be added here, so I know they need attention, they need help. So as I said, I want to, so you have these columns here, and I'll go into some of the columns in a moment, because as you can see, you can add multiple columns here on the far right, clicking on the plus button, and you already have some essentials and some super useful columns. You even got more by clicking on the more columns, and then within the column center, you have a lot of more choices. Think of a phone column, location column, and so on and so on. So for now, I'll start with the status column to give our board a bit more structure. And I want all items that are new to the board. By default, I want them to give them the status new. For all working on it, that's already there, so that's perfect. Stuck is also already there. Only the published I still need to add, and I'll do that now. And the next thing, you can laugh with it, but it always helps me for making the color the same way as the group's colors are. So working on it is orange, so I'll change this one to orange. And right now I'm going to do it manually, but the goal is to have this automatically, and that will be shown later on. So this one is a new one, this one is a new one, and this one is done. Let's make this published. Remove this one. Green is published. And of course, stuck is red. Cool. So we have our first structure, which is the new by default, the working on it, the published, and the stuck groups, all with their according labels. Next thing I want to do is want to have the data that I need for a specific content. So I want to be able to add someone to a task. So let's say I want to add an owner, and we can do that with the person column. The person column by default was already added, but know that you can always add more people columns or a new people column here. The people column helps me to assign tasks to certain people from within the organization. So whenever I add them to a task, they get a notification like, hey, you've been added to a task. And whenever they click on it, they will automatically go to this specific task. So at this point, I gave myself some tasks and also Matthias, a colleague. Next up is a status column. And a status column by default gives you the status of a certain item. Is it stuck? Is someone working on it? Is it already done? But a status column can be more than just that. A status column can also be something like a content type. And a content type is probably something I'll need because I want to know which type of content will be added or the request will have. So I'll add a status column, call it content type. And I'll add some examples. For example, I want blogs, I want emails. So far, my inspiration. So I'm going to start with these two, and I'm going to apply it. Next one is a date column, and a date column makes it easy for you to, for example, in my case, I need a published date, so a date when something needs to be published. So I call this published date. And unintentionally, I showed you how to sort within a column, basically. Cool. Next one is a file column, because probably when someone gives me an assignment, they'll need the extra option to give me an example. So I'll use the file column for that. Know that the file column can be integrated with any of the cloud providers listed here. But you can also upload it directly from your computer, and in that sense, then it will be saved on the monday.com platform. This is just a referral to your cloud provider. And you can also use it for the webcam. Cool. So we have our file, we have our content type. I need a place for my requesters to add some extra. And I'll use a text column for that. So I just want some briefing information. I want them to be able to add some briefing information. And as well, a way of them telling me on which platform they want to upload it. So I want to be able to give them the option, like I want it on Instagram, I want it on the intranet, I want it on LinkedIn. Could be both. And that's the big difference between a status and a dropdown. A status is a one-on-one relation, basically. And a dropdown could be, for example, let me add those options. Instagram, intranet, LinkedIn, of course. Could be more. So I have multiple labels attached to one item. And that's the difference between a status and a dropdown, right? And I think we're good to go. This is all the data I want to collect. So as an example, I'm just going to make these some of the I have some test data. Okay, cool. We have our board. We have our way of structuring the data. And the thing is now is I want to have certain, let's say, certain ways of viewing that data. And that's where the views come in. And I will start with the form view. Why the form view? Because as you remember, I said I want to have the data being collected here, and the sources are external as internal. So whenever I want to do that, I can use a form, call it requests, and by default, it gives you this. But you can still edit the form on the top left. Maybe I was a little bit too fast, sorry. So here, edit form. And then you have the choice to build, customize, even publish your form. Whenever you build it, you have the option to add extra add extra questions, and the questions, they are related to a column. So whenever you add a new question here, a new column gets added. So you can work on both ways. Know that whenever you want to make it required, you can do it here. You can even include a condition, make it a conditional form. Like, for example, is someone working on it? Some extra questions should appear here. Otherwise, don't bother. And I can even hide the question. And in our example, I want to hide the status question, because if someone adds a new request, they don't need to add if someone's working on it or something like that. So I want to hide this one, and all the rest seems okay. Cool. So then I can start customizing it, and I can do that with the help of these three sections: the view customization, the after submission, and the building settings. And what's important for us at this point is I want all the new requests coming to the group new content, and I also want to use the form internally. And that's pretty cool, because I think I have to refresh. No, I don't even have to refresh. Now you have the extra option when you click on this arrow that you can add new content via form. So now you give your own team the option of adding data in a structured manner. So they don't have to go over, they don't have to add it here manually. It's still possible, but they don't have to. And fill in the empty cells. Now you can really tell them, like, this is important information, these things are required, fill this in. I'm checking the time, still have 9 minutes, cool. The other views I want to talk about is the dashboard view. I'll do it in the dashboard view. So you can add, whenever you add a new view, it opens a dashboard view, but with a certain widget. So if I would open the chart, it basically is your dashboard, but with an extra widget. And it's the same here. This is just an empty one. And I can add multiple widgets here and give you an insight based on the data that's being displayed here. So what I can do is, for example, I want to add a battery to being able to see how it's going. So I can always see which one is working on it. I can open it. You can go further and further and further. And I see all the data in a glimpse. I can also add another widget. For example, what might be cool for you guys to see, and in our use case could work, is a timeline, where you can, for example, see who has which work. So I have some work on my name. If you don't want to group it by person, you can also group it by, for example, group. So I can see which is new content. So this is actually a thing you don't want to see. This is new content and it's already past the published date. So that's something you don't want. So you can alter this here. You can click it open, still add or remove other information. So it's still workable from here. So you have your views, the data is showed in another way, and you can still work with it. I'm not going to go any deeper in the other settings. Another one that might be good for us is the calendar widget. which basically is a calendar with all the items based on the publish date. And I checked it off here, based on the publish date where it needs to be organized. But I can also change it from here. I can do my planning here. I can add Matthijs and remove myself if I'm lazy that day, and so on and so on. So you have a lot of flexibility. And last one I would like to show you guys is, remember when I said filtering goes hand in hand with the views? And that's basically what I'm going to show you now. So whenever you have your data, you can easily check all these things to filter by. And a pretty cool one is the me dynamic. So this means whoever opens or uses this filter will see tasks that are assigned to him or her. If I would click on it and I would say save as a new view, voila, I get my new view. I can rename it to my tasks. Pretty cool. And now I only see the data that is assigned to me. So I don't care about all the other data. I only want to see the tasks that are assigned to me. And if my colleague Matthijs would open this view, he would only see his tasks. So it's dynamically, basically, like it said. All right. So far, the views. Next thing I want to cover is communication within the platform, and that's a pretty cool one. You can do that by clicking on the Start Conversation, and you can write updates. And within those updates, you can tag people or tag yourself. You can add files to it. You can even add GIFs. So I have a lot of work to do. And the other coolest thing I would like to show you is the checklist. Voila. And the checklist is actually representable in the item itself, and you don't always have to open it in able to see what's being checked off, if checked off. So for example, I want Lennart to add some or do some other tasks. I can think, speak, and type at the same time. Well, and when I update it, it is now here represented as 0 of the 3 tasks are checked for this specific email. And I did my job and I checked them all off. And now it says it's fully green, 3 of the 3 are done. Besides from that way, so to elaborate on that, updates is your main way of communicate within the platform. But it's very powerful. But because on certain tasks, let's say there is an email and it's not going it should be, and it's stuck, me as a team manager, I can now hover over this status. When you see the plus button appear, I can click on it. And on this specific status, I can say, Lennart, what's going on here? I'll update it. And now within the communication, you see that someone, myself, tagged me and asked what's going on here. And I did it on the status stuck. And what's also cool is whenever I hover over it, I see, okay, it's stuck. And here is why, or this is the thread going or explaining what's not going well. You can like it, you can reply it, and so on and so on. Okay, last thing, no, 2 things I want to cover before I have to leave you guys, unfortunately, is a way to organize this board or keep it organized better is whenever items are published, and let's say we're already 1 year in publishing stuff, and we have over 1,000 things published, and it's not relevant anymore. It's always possible to either archive or delete these items. Whenever you delete something, so I deleted it, it's always visible or retrievable within the recycle bin if it's within the 30 days policy. So here you saw the block tree that I deleted. I can restore it, and yay, it's back. It's here. Same thing when you archive. If you archive an item, it's not visible here anymore, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You can retrieve it from the top right corner on the 3 dots, go to board settings, and then see archive history. And then you see it here that this item was archived by who, when, and when I click on it, I can still see the data, but it's not, let's say, in your face anymore. Cool. Also know that archiving and deleting is something we can fully automate. So that's pretty cool as well. Hence, making me go forward with the automation, and that's the last thing we'll cover for today. It is possible to automate stuff, and in our use case, I want to automate that whenever I change the status to working on it, it automatically goes to the group working on it, and the same for publish, the same for stuck. New content automatically already is being added here, so I don't need an automation for that. And that's basically what we'll do here. And know that within the automation center, you have by default some status changes. If I go for the category status change, I see here the one that I need. When status changes to something, I'll move the item to the group. Sometimes it's not enough with the default automations, or I feel like making it custom. And you can do so by create the custom automation here. And here you can add triggers and actions. So multiple triggers and multiple actions, which makes it pretty powerful. For example, I want to change the status. Whenever the status changes to working on it, I want to move it to the group working on it. Easy like that. You can create the automation. It's now in place. You can always turn it off or turn it on whenever you need to do some manual labor or some maintenance on the board. And now on, and I hope Murphy's Law is not kicking in, if I click on working on it, it automatically goes to working on it. And on that note, I think it's time for questions, if there are any. I would love to hear them. And cool, I hope you guys already enjoyed it. And I taught you a thing or two. And cool.
Leonard, there is a question in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Let me check it. If you archive items, how long can you restore them? That's a good question. The answer should be indefinitely. And I say should be because whenever I'm not sure, I always go to the support.monday.com. I'll show you guys. So I went to the support@monday.com and I'll just search for archive. And I see how to archive and unarchive. And I hope to find the answer here as well. No, it's not really clear. Should be indefinitely. Let me for sure get back to you on that specific question. Do you know who asked the question, Rin?
Yes, Sophie.
Okay.
Sophie, so yeah.
All right. Any more questions? All right. Cool, guys. Then I would like to thank you for your attention. If there is something not clear or you still want to reach out to me, please do. I haven't showed you the slide yet, but you can do it here with this email address. So take a screenshot, type it over, you know where to find me. Cool.
Thank you, Leonard. This was amazing.
Yes.
Oh, there's one question.
I saw.
Why would you add tasks in the boxes via the chat instead of making it sub-items? What is the advantage?
I would say sub-items gives you more flexibility, but sometimes sub-items are already occupied by another use case. And then you would refer to the task. So a task is just a simple reminder whenever you want to tag someone, like, don't forget these things. Well, it's a good question. You can use, in some use cases, I would recommend sub-items, and in some use cases, I would recommend using the tasks. Know that with sub-items, you can add a date, add a deadline, and so on. Cool.
Cool. Okay. I think we can round up, Leonard.
All right. Guys, have a nice day, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.